I want to have an honest conversation with you today about smartwatches because I've got one on my wrist at the moment which I think is going to be the smartwatch to beat in 2025. Here we go. So I've been thinking about what matters to me when it comes to smartwatches, and it's not very much, and equally it kind of diminishes over time, the time that I have with that watch. So firstly, looks. It has to look the part. It has to kind of strike the balance between being sporty and also working in formal situations. It has to have really smooth operation, and it needs to have really good battery life. And it needs fitness tracking, not because I want to analyse every minute detail of my runs and my hikes, because I don't really care, but just because why do I track my workouts? And that's the point really. Even though I track my workouts, I don't look at the data afterwards. So my smartwatch usage is very moderate. And that got me thinking, am I weird? Should I just get a normal watch? Or is my use case the same as most people's use cases? So I ran a poll on YouTube and this was the result. So as you can see, I'm normal. And this brings me to today's subject, which is the OnePlus Watch 3, and all I want to know is two things. What's it like as a normal watch? A normal use smartwatch, and yes, is it better than the Apple Watch? Okay, so I should give you some specs really, because that's part of the reason you came here. So it's a 46mm watch and it fits wrists between 140 and 210 millimeters, and it weighs 81 grams with the strap. It's got a 1.5-inch LTPO AMOLED display, which is still very hard to say, with 2,200 nits of peak brightness, which is very bright and brighter than the Apple Watch. It's powered by the Snapdragon W5 and the BES 2800 BP. It's running Wear OS 5 by Google, and there's loads of sensors which I'll just put here rather than trying to say them all. Wrist temperature, that's new. It's got dual band L1 and L5 GPS, which again is new, and it's IP68 water resistance with up to 5 ATM of how deep you can go. It's also Google Wallet compatible, and it has a 631 milliamp hour battery with a battery life rated at 5 days or 120 hours or 16 days with power saving turned on. The price is £299 in the UK and €349 in Europe, and you can buy it from the 25th of Feb. And I should say that some of the health features that I'm about to mention in this video aren't available in all regions straight away, but we're told they're coming very soon everywhere. I think that's a disclaimer from OnePlus, not from me. Read the fine print on the website, please. The UK pricing is actually £319. I've literally just been told that by OnePlus. We've filmed the video earlier, so I couldn't put it into that, so apologies. But yeah, 319 quid, which is still very competitive. Let's start with battery life, because this is my number one thing for smartwatches. If you've only ever used an Apple Watch, you'll be used to charging it very regularly. And to be honest, you've probably forgotten about it. You just do it. It's part of the routine of owning an Apple Watch. I was the same until I started doing this job and started testing other smartwatches. And then I realized that Apple can do much better. And yes, the Apple Watch charges incredibly quickly these days, but then so do all of the other Android watches I've tested recently, including the OnePlus Watch 3. It's just the battery life that's achievable with the Watch 3 that is unbelievable. 5 days in normal use, 3 days with really heavy use, and 16 days in power saving mode. That's the sort of battery life that the Apple Watch Ultra 2 could only dream of. Oh, and if you run out of charge, a 10-minute juice up gives you a full day of usage. I think the reason this watch is so good with the battery is because of a combination of those two chips that I mentioned earlier. Wear OS 5 by Google is clearly very well optimized, and the nanostack technology which OnePlus uses in the Watch 3. Combined, it makes it exactly what a smartwatch should be in terms of battery in 2025. And that 5 days of battery life claim does seem to be pretty much bang on. I charged it on Monday last week and didn't have to recharge it until Friday. And this makes a difference, guys, because it means you only have to charge once a week, pretty much, if you're a normal user. Performance. Now we can do this incredibly quickly. The OnePlus Watch 3 feels exactly like the Apple Watch. in everyday usage. It's very fast, very smooth. It does all the same stuff pretty much as the Apple Watch, has all the kind of health stuff, which I'll come on to in a little bit. It's just very Apple Watch-like. The only thing that is a little bit annoying is that some of the OnePlus watch faces aren't quite as customizable as Apple's watch faces, but this isn't a comparison between this and the Apple Watch. I need to stop talking about the Apple Watch because that's getting boring, even though it's impossible to avoid it. Now, I must make it abundantly clear that when I say the OnePlus Watch 3 is very Apple Watch-like, I'm not saying that OnePlus has copied Apple, because who cares? Let's talk design and looks, and straight off the bat, this is one of the best looking smartwatches I've ever used. It comes in two finishes, emerald and obsidian, which is the one that I've got to review. The bezel is titanium, the case is stainless steel, and the cover glass is made from sapphire crystal. The interesting thing about the Watch 3 is that it's not immediately eye-catching as soon as you get it out of the box and put it on your wrist. It takes a few days to get used to it and to really appreciate just how good this thing looks. It's also a circular watch, and if you've been watching this channel for a little while, by the way, if you have and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, you know where it is. But if you have been, you'll know that I prefer circular watches over square watches, and the reason for that is that they manage to straddle that very tricky balance between being a fitness device and being something you could equally, for instance, wear to a wedding. It is quite a big watch, and there's no other size available at the moment. I don't know if that will ever change, but that is one criticism you could level at it, because I know some people prefer smaller watches, but I love big watches, and this is my channel, so there. It's also a deceivingly light watch for its size, and it has military grade durability, which no idea what that means, but it's nice to know it's there. One thing you will notice pretty much every day is the 2200 nits of peak brightness, which is 200 more than the Apple Watch Series 10 and not that much less than the Apple Watch Ultra 2. Oh, and good news if you're a OnePlus Watch 2 fan but had one gripe with it, which was that the digital crown couldn't be twiddled. You can twiddle this one, and it does stuff in the operating system, so that's nice. And no, I didn't need to come in here, but I thought it would look good in the video. Health and fitness, and we have reached a point with smartwatches where they pretty much all do the same stuff, and the Watch 3 is no different. It's got over 100 activities that it can track. It's got 11 Pro sports mode, so if you play tennis and you want to get feedback on your swing, you can do that. But if you just go running occasionally like me and go to the gym, it's great. It seems to be accurate. It's got that GPS, which means if you're tracking hikes like this, in theory, it should be very accurate in terms of keeping track of where you are. It's a great sports watch. Who just left this here? And yes, you get loads of feedback on your workouts, on your runs and that sort of stuff if you're interested in that sort of data. They have a wellness score on here as well, which takes into account your HRV, your activity intensity, and your resting heart rate to give you this kind of, thumbs up or thumbs down in terms of how you might be feeling. How that kind of chimes with how you're actually feeling is debatable, but it's nice to know that it has this kind of feedback for you based on what you're doing with the watch. And yes, it gets more personalized the more you wear it. The other thing that OnePlus is pushing quite heavily with the Watch 3 is the 60-second health check, which basically takes into account an ECG, a PPG, which stands for photoplethys something, but your sinus rhythm, signs of arterial stiffness, breathing problems, your vascular age, your SpO2, your wellness, your wrist temperature, and it gives you some feedback on all of that stuff, which again isn't intended to replace your doctor, but it's nice to have that on your wrist. Once again, those features aren't particularly unique to OnePlus. You get them on most smartwatches these days, but I like the way that OnePlus has packaged it together in this 60-second health check, but also in Health, which is the OnePlus app you connect the Watch to, which is a very good health app. It's got all the data, once again, if you want it, but if you're someone like me who just likes to skim the surface, you can, and it's very presentable and very easy to read if you're me. This feels like a bad idea. Too old for this. So, my big conclusion, is the OnePlus Watch 3 better than the Apple Watch? Yes. The way it looks, the battery life, and the fact that it does everything the Apple Watch does anyway makes it a winner. There's just one issue. It doesn't work on the iPhone. But that's good news, because that means you can check out the OnePlus 13. If you want to see my full review of this brilliant phone, a bit of a spoiler, wait for the link at the end.